Right? So this is actually very, very nice, mashallah. If only Imam Ahmed and Abu Hanifa and Shafi'i and Malik could do that, could do the same, we would have a much more coherent opinion. However, unfortunately, we didn't have that in before. But now, because of the issues of travel and everything are so easy, so now, alhamdulillah, we have a more coherent approach to our modern problems. So throughout the talk, I'll be mentioning what this World Fiqh Council will be, has given fatwa upon. As anything in Islam, buyu also has conditions, has shurut. Just like salah has shurut, and tayammum has shurut, and fasting has shurut, so too buyu has shurut. The shurut in buyu are 6. There are 6 shurut as put down by Islam in buyu. The first one being taradi, being mutual consent. So rida, which is called the consent, from both the buyer and the seller is an essential part of buyu. If you don't have rida, if you don't have the consent, then you cannot buy and sell. So you can't just forcefully buy for someone who doesn't want it. Like we usually do that sometimes, don't we? We forcefully, for example, might just say to our brother, hey, give that to me, and he doesn't really want to, and we just part, and we think that we have just bought or sold or etc. We have taken a gift from him. No, this is not halal in Islam. Rather, he must want for that product to be bought or sold, and only then will the transaction be halal. So therefore, forced selling or forced buying is not correct. Except, of course, if it is done by the wali al-amr, if it is done by the hakim, the ruler of the country, if he forces you to buy or forces you to sell for a maslahah, for a reason that he sees, for a benefit that he sees for the general community, then he can do that. For example, people are in lack of water, and you don't have, and there's a drought in the land, and you are the water company, and you're hoarding all the water. He can force you to sell your water if he so wishes. He can force you to sell your water at a lower price as well if he so wishes. Right. Next point being, this next condition of buyu being that the buyer and the seller be competent to buy and sell. What do I mean by competent? Meaning that he is mukallaf, right? That he is mukallaf and he is competent to buy and sell. So therefore, based on this, the transaction buying and selling from a majnoon, for a person who's mad, is not right. Nor from a child who is less than 7 years old. A child who's less than 7 years old doesn't have the right to buy and sell at all, except, of course, if he is given the permission by his father or his mother, or the person in charge of him. So his father and mother might have said, okay, take this £5, go to the local baqala, go to the local milk bar, and get me a pint of milk, for example, right? Pint of milk. Okay, we're in England, pint. So okay, buy a pint of milk, for example, and he goes out and he does that. So is that correct for the local milk bar person to actually take that money from it? Why? Because his parents are giving him permission for that. However, a person who is a majnoon, for example, then it is not permissible to take his money and buy and sell from him without the permission of his wali, the person in charge of him. Next point was that that I wrote there was the validity of selling off other people's wealth or buying with other people's wealth. Wealth is subject to the consent of the owner of the wealth. This is what we call bay' al-fuduli in Arabic. Bay' al-fuduli basically is that someone goes and takes the property or takes the wealth of someone else, goes ahead and he just buys and sells because he thinks, for example, that that person wants to sell it, or he wants to buy it, for example. He goes ahead and buys it without that person's explicit permission. We know that because that person hasn't really allowed it yet, so the transaction really hasn't taken place. However, should we say therefore that the transaction is haram? That is the view of a large number of ulama. They say that the bay' al-fuduli, such a transaction, is not halal. However, the Hanafis are of the opinion that it is halal as long as that person later on comes and says that yes, okay, what you did is right, I will agree to the sale. So if this is the correct opinion, the opinion of the Hanafi scholars in this mas'ala is the correct opinion in this issue. That is also the opinion of Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah and of Ibn Qayyim, that the bay' al-fuduli is right. Why? Because it is just based upon the person's permission. As long as the person permits it. If he doesn't permit it, then he hasn't lost anything, has he? So therefore, and he has a lot, and he has the chance to actually win. he might actually have wanted to sell that car, and this person might have actually sold it for a good price, right? And so therefore, he has a chance to win, and he has nothing to lose, because he can easily say no, and then Islam would say therefore the transaction is haram, and the sale did not take place. So Bay' al-Fuduli therefore is right, inshaAllah, subject to the consent of the owner of the wealth. The next condition is that the commodity must be permissible to use in other than times of need. Yani it is mubah fi ghayri haja, as we say in Arabic. It is mubah fi ghayri haja, meaning what? In times of necessity, everything is halal, isn't it? In times of great necessity, everything is halal. Even alcohol is halal. Even eating the haram meat, eating pork, for example, becomes halal if obviously the necessity is so high, right? We took that yesterday. If the necessity is so high that you're going to die if you don't eat pork, for example, then it's halal to eat pork. So what we are saying is that just because at that point pork is halal, does that mean therefore in normal circumstances pork is also halal to buy and sell? We say no. This is why the condition is that the commodity must be permissible to use in times of other than need. In the same way, impermissible commodities therefore are something which is najis. Therefore that which is najis, such as for example blood. Can we sell our blood? And we know that for example in some of our countries, back in the poor third world countries, people sell blood in order to survive. Can we sell blood? We cannot. Why? Blood is najis, and there is ijma upon this topic, inshaAllah. Therefore it is not permissible to buy and sell blood. So you can't go to the blood banks and buy blood. Unfortunately that is taking place a lot, isn't it? People sell blood, donate blood and get some money for it. And also when you're in need of blood, people buy the blood. All of this is impermissible. Also, of course, unless there's no other way and you need the blood and you're going to die otherwise, then of course you can go ahead and buy the blood or sell the blood. Also dead animals, for example, are not permissible. Dead animals, what do I say dead animals? Anything that is slaughtered other than Islamic way is dead. It's considered dead. Right? Anything that is slaughtered in a non-Islamic way is considered dead. Therefore, it is not permissible for you to buy, for example, non-halal meat and give it to your, obviously you're not going to eat it, right? Because you're a Muslim. So it's not permissible to go to your local butchers, for example, and buy non-halal meat and give it to your neighbor as a gift. Right? Why? Because non-halal meat is considered dead, and so a product that is dead is not permissible for you to use. Maita, in Arabic we call it. Okay? So therefore as well, any meat that is not halal is not permissible to be bought. Okay, as well the manure of animals that are najis. Animals that are najis, for example, such as for example the domesticated donkey. The domesticated donkey is najis. However, the Sharia has given us some concession and allowed us to ride it. And therefore, obviously when you ride it, we're going to be rubbing on its skin. And also when you ride it, its saliva, it might come on our bodies. However, so this is the concession the Sharia has given us. However, its blood, its meat, its bones, everything about the donkey is najis. If it is najis, therefore, if the donkey itself is najis, then its manure as well is najis. Its urine is also najis. If there is an animal that is tahir, that is pure, such as a camel, such as a horse, then its manure is pure as well, and so its urine is also pure. So you can sell the manure of a horse, for example, but you can't sell the manure of a donkey, for example. Right? And also, for example, stolen products as well. If you know them to be definitely stolen, then they are, of course, also haram products that they cannot be bought and sold. Next point is the commodity must be sold by the owner or he who has the hukum of the owner. What we mean by that is that the commodity must be sold by the owner, the one who owns the property, owns the commodity, or the one who is in the hukum of the owner. Who is in the hukum, in the same position as the owner, is his agent.